basically, they have a very interesting. Oh, we do have. Anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter where he's from. We're not going to discuss that. I'm joking. So long story short, they have an interesting sense of humor. At least my roommate had. And what happened was, he told me, we really want you to come in the summer. I said I wasn't interested in Ukraine. Thank you. So then he had this sense of humor where every night he'd put on music, blaring in our room in the dorm. And he said, until you agree to come, we're going to play this music. So, the first day it's kind of funny. Midnight, there's loud Hasidic music playing, 12:30, 1 o'clock. Somehow I fell asleep. Night number 2, the game, it's lights out. They turn out the lights in the dormitory. At 10 p.m., he starts his music, 11 p.m. At day number 4, it was getting a little, repetitive. I told me, Ellie, come on, let's just shut the music. You go to Ukraine, I'm going to California. It continued. Eventually, I couldn't, you can't argue with them. So I said, okay, I'll go with you to Ukraine. So he said, but there's one thing, you have to raise money to fly to Ukraine because we don't pay our tickets for the counselors. It's very poor there. So we went around Kfar Chabad. If anyone knows Israel, Kfar Chabad is a Chabad village outside of Tel Aviv. And we were supposed to raise, I think, $400 for the flight. I went around to the different homes, and I'm telling them we're raising money for poor kids in Ukraine. So after going to about 5-6 houses, I realized there was some type of a misunderstanding. They thought we were raising what's called the machzis a shekel, the half a shekel coin that people used to give in the temple's times, because they're giving us half shekels. And I realized it's not going to be enough to get anywhere. I probably couldn't even make it to Haifa with this money. So we ended up buying, I think, in Israel, shoko and lachmaniya, which is a bun. And I told Ellie, listen, we tried, it didn't work out. Long story short, he convinced me, let's go to England. You have a flight back home to Canada in the summer. We'll fundraise in London. So we went to London, we fundraised. I'm not going to get into the details. Next thing I know, I land in Kiev. This is in 1998. I land in Kiev, don't speak a word of Russian. Don't know how I got there. A car comes to pick us up to take us to camp. I asked the driver, how far is the camp from the airport? He says it's a 22-hour drive. I was like, 22 hours? Yeah. Okay, listen, not asking any questions. I made it this far. 6 hours into the drive, I asked my friend, I'm like, Ellie, are we going to have any meals on this? I mean, it's 6 hours already. Perhaps we should feed us. He said, yeah, we're going to stop in an hour for food. And I'm never going to forget this. This is in 1998. We stopped an hour later, and there were 3 items of food on the menu that day. The first item was matzah. Matzah and Russia go very well together. Rabbi Chaim knows, he's been here. In this neck of the woods, matzah is like what pizza is for Americans, matzah is for Jewish Russians. So the first item was matzah. Now this is 1998, and in big block letters on the box of matzah, it said 1994. Suspicious, let's be honest, right? 4 years, 1994, this is 98. Okay, second item was a cracker called Melba Rounds. It's a cracker made by Pashkis. It never made it too well in the States. It just didn't sell. Sometimes you make a cracker, you didn't put the right ingredients, it just doesn't sell. It doesn't taste too well. And it passed the date by about 2.5 years, the expiration date. What do? You don't throw it out, you send it to Ukraine. So that was the second item. And the third item, I'm never going to forget, is gefilte fish. Manischewitz gefilte fish in a jar. And he said, we don't have enough for everyone. So the first meal, half of the counselors will get the gefilte fish, and the other half will get the jelly of the gefilte fish, right? It comes in this liquid, in this jelly. But don't worry, the next meal we're going to swap over and we'll switch to the other. So whoever got the jelly will get the fish. Whoever got, long story short, that was the last time in my life I ate the jellyfish, the Manischewitz gefilte fish. To this day, I can't look at it. But we drove here for 20 hours. We arrived to camp. I asked the shliach, there was a shliach living there, Rabbi Lifshitz. I asked him, how many kids do we have in camp? He said, at the moment, we have none. So I look at 20 counselors that flew in from America, from Israel, from England. We have 20 counselors and there's no campers. I said, what's that mean? He said, now you guys have to look for them. I said, perhaps you didn't get the memo. We don't speak Russian. There's 20 of us. We don't speak Russian. Well, my parents aren't Russian. My grandparents aren't Russian. None of us. He said, it's fine. We'll send you a translator. I remember I was sent to a city called Yalta, a famous city. Anyone that, read a little bit of history, the Second World War, the famous meeting there. So I'm walking around the city looking for Jews. I'm asking, Yevrei means a Jew. Yevrei. One guy apparently wasn't too fond of the Jews because based on his answer, he definitely wasn't a Jew. Long story short, at the end of the day, I found 2 Jews. I came back to the city where we came from, Simferopol. I said, we have a little problem. We have 20 counselors and I have 2 campers. So how do we divide up? I mean, the campers could be the counselors and we could be the campers. So other people had more success. We started camp. And there were about 65 or 70 children in camp, kids that never in their life had anything to do with Judaism. That means they don't know who Moshe Rabbeinu is. They don't know what Pesach is. They've never tasted matzah. They've never held a lulav and esrog. They never fasted. They don't know what Rosh Hashanah is. Nothing. Zero. Torah. You tell them Torah, they don't know what Torah is. but their mothers are Jewish. 2 weeks into camp, a boy comes to me and he tells me, Chaim, I want to do, his name is Dima. He tells me, Chaim, I want to do a brisanya. I want to do a bris. I'm like, want to do a bris? We didn't get training. What do you know? Bris? What do you want to do a bris? Why don't you have a bris when you're 14 years old? I didn't know what to do. I took a basketball. I said, go play basketball. He went away. I was like, okay, I dodged that bullet. An hour later, he comes back. He's like, I want to do a bris. I was like, I gave him some candy. I think I had some candy I brought with me, or maybe the crackers, the Melbourne rounds. Long story short, that night I come to the staff meeting and I tell the staff we have a problem. There's a boy in my bunk. He came to me. He says he wants to do a bris. So they said, no problem. The last day of camp, the Moel will come to camp. I said, you serious? The Moel is coming to camp? They said, yeah. But I said, he's 14 years old. How? He said, no, he's the doctor. He's the Moel. Okay, so I tell this Dima, the last day of camp, we're going to do the bris. Fast forward, and I'm moved. Why does a kid want to do a bris? Fast forward, the last day of camp, this boy, the Moel, shows up to camp. They're about to begin the procedure. It's a serious procedure. This is unbelievable. A Jewish boy who didn't have a bris, and in communist times, no one had a bris at 8 days old. So people now, they're coming back to the faith. They're coming back to Jewish culture and traditions. They're coming back to Yiddishkeit, and they want to be a part of this amazing mitzvah. So they're about to begin the procedure, and I tell Ellie, perhaps we should ask the parents. He's 14 years old. You have to get consent. Good idea. Okay, you call the parents. I remember I pick up the phone, and I call the mother, and I knew, I think, 4 or 5 words in Russian. So I said, lager, which means camp, lager. I said, Dima, which means his name. And I said, Abrazanya. Lager, Dima, Abrazanya. Those are the 3 words I said, which basically means camp, Dima, bris. The mother starts the phone. I don't know what she said. I said, da, 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 and she hung up. They're all looking at me, and they said, what'd she say? I said, I think she said yes, and I'm not 100% sure. That sounded like it. I mean, I didn't speak Russian. No one spoke Russian. Long story short, this little boy, this 14-year-old boy, Dima, did a bris. He got a Jewish name. And that summer changed my life. After that summer, I left Ukraine, and I couldn't stop thinking about these Jewish kids. Some of them were orphans. All of them came from underprivileged homes. Most of them didn't have fathers. Most of them lived in dumps and in small little wooden shacks, homes that had nothing. They came to camp because we offered, 3 meals a day. And these people wanted to do a bris. They wanted to come back. There was such a thirst for Yiddishkeit. And I started going back year after year after year until I did it for, I think, 6 years. Every summer we started a camp. We did everything for these kids. It was just so moving to see how they came back to their heritage, how they, after 70 years of communism, their parents knew nothing, their grandparents knew nothing, and they were coming back. It was something unbelievable. And that's when I met my wife, 2005. How did I meet her? Her brother was in camp with me. And I think she was maybe 15 at the time. And he said he has a shidduch for her. And the mother's like, hey, we're not looking for shidduchim. She's 15. So he waited a few more years. And he made the suggestion that we should date. So we're dating in Pittsburgh. And at that point, I was quite interested in going to this part of the world because it was something very special to help Jews that have suffered so many years. And I was inspired by them. It wasn't about inspiring them. It was seeing these people and just seeing how we're brought up in the States or Canada, where we have kosher food, we have options of Jewish education, we have so much, and here these kids have nothing, and they just want to do it. You tell them Shabbos, okay, we'll do Shabbos. You tell them anything, they're kosher, okay, so we won't eat anywhere. Like, it was unbelievable. So we're dating, I think 7-8 dates. You know the way it works in the Jewish world. In most circles in the Hasidic world, we don't even meet our wives before the wedding, right? We come under the chuppah and we lift the veil. If we're happy, we're very good. If we're not happy, then, in life, you're not always happy, right? So I'm joking. Chaim, right?
Oh, you don't do that anymore?
So these days we actually meet our wives before we get married. So we're about date number 8. Things are going well. We're about to get engaged. And my wife tells me, by the way, I'm going to sleep. Good to see you. But my wife tells me, by the way, you're not planning on moving to Russia, are you? I said, why? So, because if you are, tell me now, because I'm not in for this ride. So I said, no, I'm not planning on moving to Russia. And that was it. I realized to marry my wife, I had to give up on this dream of mine of going to Russia. We got married. We lived in Crown Heights, and we started looking for a place to move on shlichus. And that's when we had the great honor, and that's when we had the great schus, the merit of meeting Chaim. Rabbi Chaim, I remember he came to our house. It was 762 Empire Boulevard, if I remember correctly. We lived in a shoebox of an apartment. I was lucky enough to have a friend, a mutual friend, Ephraim Mintz, who knew that we were looking to move on shlichus, and he's good friends with Rabbi Chaim. And he told us he can make a shidduch. You know, by us we make shidduchim for marriage, and we make shidduchim for shlichus, to move out somewhere. So my first shidduch was very successful with my wife, and my second shidduch was also very successful with Chaim. Chaim shows up to our house, and it's a dream come true, moving to California. I mean, I'm from Toronto. We're used to cold weather. My wife's from Pittsburgh, cold weather. And if we can't move to Russia, then California is the next best thing, right? So we met Chaim. We started negotiations. It was a tough negotiation because we were looking for a 6-7 figure salary, right? 7 or 6?
I think it was 7.
7, right? So we looked for a second.
In the high 6s.
The high 6, right? Yes. So we were looking for a 7-figure salary. Eventually, we settled for just a little shy of that. On a serious note, we met Rabbi Chaim, and he invited us to come down to California. I think it was Hanukkah the first time. And we landed. He came to pick us up from the airport. It was Burbank Airport. We were in Gan Eden. We just felt that we just landed in California. Chaim picks us up, takes us to Pasadena. There was a celebration outside the Chabad house, a beautiful menorah lighting. Or no, the menorah lighting was by the city hall, but there was something else outside Chabad. And the community was so warm. It was like literally like a few hours after we arrived, we were like, okay, we're gonna if we get the offer, we're gonna move here. And that's what happened. We got the offer, we moved there, and we had the most amazing and spectacular couple years. It was amazing meeting every one of you. It was amazing working together on a team of a rabbi and rebbitzin who were so welcoming, so helpful. I remember every Friday we'd get a delivery of challahs from LA. These are things that you don't appreciate back then. I mean, today I'd love to get. My wife's been making challahs for 12 years every Friday, and she's been baking bread every week. It's only now that you start appreciating even the little things of going. You know, Rabbi Chaim would go into LA, take care of his stuff, and just bring without even asking, without doing the community welcoming, sitting, inviting for. I remember the first year I don't think we didn't even make a kiddush at home. Every Shabbos we pull into the Hanoka residence. And we have a beautiful feast. I remember Arnold was always with us. Is he here? Arnold was a regular, right? I think who else was? We had a team, and it was just beautiful. Now what happened was, and this is where I fill the blanks. What happened next, right? Am I supposed to say what happened next or no?
Well, before you get to what happens next, let me fill in some people about something they don't know. So Rabbi Danzinger spoke about his experience in the Ukraine, eventually going there for 6 summers. What many of you do not know is this camp that he and a few other guys helped found became famously known as Yeka. Yeka is it's not even an acronym. It's kind of short for the city called Yekaterinoslav, which is a city where the Rebbe's father was the chief rabbi at the time. Now it's known as Dnepropetrovsk. So actually, Rabbi Danzinger is known as the godfather of Yeka. Now there's going to be a movie, I think, coming out soon, The Godfather of Yeka. We're not sure when. But it's interesting to note that literally he's like the godfather. They talk about the guys who founded Yeka, with like a certain level of reverence. So I have a son-in-law and daughter-in-law, incidentally, who have both been to the Yeka camps. Rabbi Stiefel and Arcadia spent time there, and my daughter-in-law, Meducha Bela, Label's wife, actually she runs, I should say, ran the girls' camp out there, and still does up to today, even though she's doing it from Pasadena. She's doing it long distance. But Rabbi Danziger has a long history and a long past over there, and the former, I guess when I was there was the former Soviet Union. I guess when you were there was Ukraine. So I guess that kind of sums up why you ended up in California, because Rostov or Russia is most resembled by the city of Pasadena, which is understood, obviously. I mean, because we kind of feel somewhat Russian over here. We're always Russian here, Russian there. So you spent a couple of years here. Ultimately, on our end, we loved you guys here, you and Kayla. And at the time, I think you had 2 kids. Does that remember correctly?
No. We had one.
Oh, just
Mendel. That's right.
Mendel's the only one who was here. Okay, so Mendel was I don't remember, a couple of years old when you left. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
2 years old when you moved. And right now, I actually bumped into him in New York. He's a bar mitzvah boy in change already. Can I know her? I'm growing up, and now you have what, about 100 kids or something like that?
Something around 102
on your tax returns in Rostov. Whatever
we consider the whole community.
The whole community, and things work a little differently in Russia. But we had actually some beautiful times over here, beautiful years. We were, in all sincerity, sad to see you guys go. But I understood, I remember having a conversation with you, where you kind of needed to expand your horizons, expand your wings. God bless you and your wife with a tremendous amount of talent. And apparently that call to Russia was like really strong. And I'm not sure how you convinced your wife, who I think, as I understood, you made it very clearly before you got married, you're not moving to Russia. So how did you change that in the prenup? I mean, was that like a legal decision? What happened?
I'm very interested in this part.
Yes.
I see Nancy here. So Nancy, we went to Nancy several times and I'm joking. I should have. So what happened was actually several funny things I'd say about this. So my brother got married in Venice, Italy in 2008. And as it turns out, that was the mistake of my wife's life to go to that wedding. Why is that? It was January 2008. He did a destination wedding because we both studied in Venice. And we went from Pasadena to Venice for Shabbos for a few days for the wedding. Little did I know, all my friends from Ukraine that lived in Ukraine, that were Russian, they planned a little meeting there. So I didn't know they were coming to the wedding. Next thing you know, middle of the wedding, 6 people pull up from Ukraine. Okay, very nice, good friends of mine. I haven't seen them for some 3-4 years. After the wedding's over, so the official wedding ends at 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m., and that's when the Russian wedding begins. The Russian wedding is when you send the bride home. You can even send the groom home. But they're planning on continuing till the morning. So I asked them, what time's their flight? They said the flight's at 8 a.m. So I said, you should get some rest. They said, no, we're going straight from here to the airport. And that's when they sit down with me. They had a little l'chaim. By little, I mean a lot. And they said, Chaim, there are cities in Russia, in Ukraine, that don't have rabbis. You chose the easy life. You went to California because there's kosher food, because there's beautiful beaches, because there's a beautiful, warm community that actually is welcoming and is waiting for you. But there's places out there where no one's willing to move to, that need a rabbi, that need someone to take care of that, and you're able to do that. And how could you opt for something less than that? So I'm listening. I didn't even want to get into the whole story. My wife, this, that. I was listening. It's an hour or 2 hours, and you think at about the 3-hour point, they'd switch the topic, say something else. But no, they're going on, and they're saying it's 1 city, 2 cities, 3 cities. Imagine cities with no synagogues, no temples, no conservative, no orthodox, nothing, and there's not a single rabbi. And you're able to go, you speak Russian, what do you think? This, anyway, they drilled it in kind of strong. I remember coming back to the hotel that night, maybe 4:30 in the morning, and Kayla was waiting, and she's like, what's going on? I told her what's going on. She wasn't too happy. But that was it. That was the wedding. I came back to California, and we really started thinking, and they called me a week later, and they called me a month later, and they started psychological pressure from all directions. Somehow, sometime later, Rabbi Lazar reached out and said that someone told him, reach out to Chaim. And he said there was a city in Russia that was looking for that needs a rabbi. And he said, I said I wasn't really able to, it wasn't an option. We're not really considering. He said, let me just tell you the name of the city. And that's when he said Rostov. Now, when he mentioned the name of Rostov, for any Lubavitch or any Chabad person in the world, Rostov is a very meaningful name. Why is that? 100 years ago, from 1915 until 1923, Rostov was the capital of Chabad. What today 770 is, what today Crown Heights is, what today the Ohel in Queens is, that was Rostov 100 years ago. Because in 1915, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was the Rebbe at the time, he escaped the village of Lubavitch to come to Rostov so that he could establish the Chabad dynasty here, because the war was nearing, the First World War was nearing Lubavitch. And when I heard the name Rostov, I know the history here. It's a meaningful city. So when I got the offer, I said, it's too much of a coincidence to just overlook. And that's when we started thinking about it and considering. And it was a very difficult decision, because usually someone switches, you leave a shlichus because something doesn't work out. You leave a shlichus because there's no salary for you. You leave a shlichus because you don't get along with the community. So this was maybe in February when I got this call. And for the whole February, the whole March, the whole April, the whole May, we're just thinking how it's a very hard decision, because on the one hand, at that point, my wife was open to the idea. But on the one hand, how can we justify? Thank God there's a beautiful community. Thank God we have a beautiful shliach to work with, to work under. And we really felt connected to the community. We really love the community dearly with all our hearts. And how do you just get up, pick up, and leave? It was then that we went. I think I traveled to New York. I went to the Oil. I prayed, and it was then that I felt like, it's really not an easy decision to make, but it's a decision that if we're on shlichus, Rabbi Chaim and Chani are living in Pasadena, not because it's a beautiful city, and not because it's a city that's near Los Angeles, and not because it's a San Gabriel Valley and you have beautiful mountains. He lives there because that's where he was sent. That's his shlichus. That's his mission. And they're gonna be there until Mashiach comes. So if we believe and we understand that we're on a mission, and the mission means not to go necessarily where you're most comfortable, not to go necessarily in a place that's easiest for you, or that things are fitting and everything's good, but to go in a place that you're most needed, that's when it occurred to us that this is perhaps the right decision. So that's when I sat down with Rabbi Chaim several times, and we discussed it, and he understood, and we made the decision. And I remember the funny thing is, just before I moved to Russia, the first thing I had to do, if anyone remembers, we had a little history with filmmaking, right? So The Godfather of Yeka is going to be our second film, because the first one was The Godfathers of Purim, which we made in 2007. Now, that was a film that we made in Pasadena, and knowing that the sense of humor in Russia is somewhat different than the sense of humor in California, I realized very quickly that before moving here, I had to delete any remnants of this video. If they catch wind of this video, I'm not going to make it here more than a couple of days. So before I'm flying out, I'm scouring YouTube, Google videos, because there are copies everywhere. I think one of Chaim's boys was fond of the video, and he just made backup copies and changed their names. And I'm snooping them up, fishing them, deleting them, catching, deleting. Anyways, that's what happened in 2008. We made a goodbye party.
That I did offer you a 7-figure salary during those negotiations, but apparently I couldn't meet that Rostov salary. You know what I mean?
So the problem was that we wanted the rubles. I was going to say, by the way, today's sponsorship, because it's connecting to, it's not $54, it's 54 rubles, which is about 70 cents. So anyone that's considering sponsoring today, you could choose dollars or rubles, and rubles is going to be a little more beneficial. It won't hurt the wallet so much. I see
because they had more manholes.
Yeah, exactly. We do have more. Yeah. So I want to tell you a funny story. And really what I want to share is a little bit of in the 12 years we've lived here, we constantly were inspired by what we see here. We're inspired by the Jews that live here. They lived in the hardest of times, and they have this neshama that just shines brightly. And I want to share just some stories, some anecdotes about some of the Jews here. But before I do that, I want to tell you a story that I think you'd appreciate. So we come to Russia. There's no Western kosher here where I live. There's no pico kosher. I come here, Shabbos is hitting, and my wife tells me, go get kosher meat from the shul. So I go to shul, and I asked the Rosh HaKol, which is the head of the community, where is the kosher meat? He said, I forgot telling you, the previous rabbis would bring the meat with them from Israel. So I said, okay. Why didn't you tell me this before I came? I mean, we were a little late for this party. We just landed. You should have told me before. Okay, so we started schlepping. Every 3 months, I'd go back to the States. I'd fill up a suitcase full of frozen meat, and I'd schlep it to Russia. Now, I want to tell you what happened. We moved there, it was February. What happened in August? So 6 months later, what happened? I was debating, we had a flight back from New York to Russia through Prague, and it's August, it's a hot month. And I'm debating, is the meat going to melt on the way, or is it going to last? So I made a calculation, as rabbis, we're a bit of we're a bit scientists, a bit doctors, a bit of everything. So I made a quick calculation, and it made sense that the meat should be okay. We deep freeze the meat before I take it on the plane. Under the plane, it's very cold. In Prague, yes, it's a hot August day, but it's only 5-6 hours, and it goes back on the plane. It should be fine. So we pack up this box full of kosher meat and went in what was it called? The Glatt in Crown Heights, House of Glatt. Yeah. Zichrenu Livracha. So we pack up this meat, and I put it in a duffel bag, the box in a duffel bag. We land in Russia, in Rostov. I go through passport control. By the time we go through passport control, we're the last people to go through. So usually when I come down to the carousel, the luggage carousel, we're the last people. I just take my luggage off and we leave. This time I walk down and everyone's still standing there. And the luggage is turning and turning and turning. I'm wondering, why is no one taking their luggage? What's going on? So I look at what's going on, and I see that my duffel bag, which had meat in it, is dripping blood. And friends, in Russia, listen, it was a bit of a mistake putting the box in a duffel bag. Let's be honest. Yeah, a duffel bag is narrow, it's black, it's long. And when something like that in Russia drips blood, people don't usually think it's kosher meat. So everyone looks at this duffel bag and they're like backing off. They're like, no, they know there's protocol. Let's let the guy with the duffel bag go through first. So I'm looking, I'm uncomfortable. This duffel bag dripping blood. I'm going to take on the rabbi with the beard, the yarmulke, the hat, take it. I was like, no, let's wait. People are going to take their stuff, then we'll leave. No one's touching anything. They know that they don't touch anything till the guys pick up the duffel bag with the blood. Someone's obviously delivering a body. Let's let the guys pick that up and then we'll see what happens. So reluctantly, I walk between the people. I grab the big suitcase. I schlep it off, and everyone looks the other direction. No one wants eye contact with the guy taking the suitcase. There's a guy standing next to me. He bends down to tie his shoelaces, but he had slip-ons. He didn't even have laces, but he's just tying something. The main thing is they don't want eye contact with me. So that was the first and last time that I brought kosher meat in the summer. The only other mistake I did has to do with food is when my wife was expecting. When Kayla was expecting and she wanted ice cream and I was in Israel 2 hours away, another big mistake. Never travel with ice cream. On a flight, let's just say quite a few people were unhappy when their suitcases came out with vanilla all over their suitcases. And mine was also. So anyway, I want to share a screen. Today's talk is a little less formal than usual. Because I'm really here with because I'm speaking to family, to mishpocha. So let me show you here. Do you see it? Okay, so this is us, February. This is a few months after we left Pasadena. We're in Crown Heights. We have about 14 suitcases of provisions, everything that we needed for the way. At that point, we just had our second child, Yaakov, and we're heading to Aeroflot to Russia. We landed in Rostov. Now, what does Rostov have? What's special here in Rostov? So the first thing I want to show you is a home. This is the home of the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. So this is the 770 of 100 years ago. This is where the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe lived, and he passed away on the 2nd day of Nisan in 1920. This is where the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe became Rebbe in 1920. And what's unique about this building, it's restored. There's a mikveh in this building. And the mikveh in the building is the first Lubavitch Chabad mikveh in the world. It's a mikveh that was used by 3 Rebbes. It was used by the Rebbe Rashab, by the 6th Rebbe, and by our Rebbe who visited in Rostov. So to this day, this mikveh is still around. About 80 years after, when the building was rebought by Chabad in the late 90s, they knew there was a mikveh in the building. They didn't know where the mikveh was. So they called up some of the very elder Chassidim who were here as young children. They directed the shliach at the time where the mikveh was. He said it was under the kitchen. They found where the kitchen used to be. They went into this basement and they dug and they found the first steps to the mikveh. And they dug by hand. The second steps, it was full to the top with junk, with sand, with everything. And they dug to the bottom. There's the original tiles in the corner. You see the little a stone that leads to the second reservoir of water, the rainwater, and there was still water in there. They found this in 1998. There was still water in the underground water. The rainwater reservoir still had some water in there, so it's something amazing. So we came to the city. The shul, the shul here in the city is a shul that was built by Cantonist soldiers 150 years ago in 1872. Cantonists were brave young Jewish soldiers. The brave young Jewish children, actually, they were taken from their parents' homes in the Tsar's times at ages of 8, 9, 10. They were re-educated until the age of 18. And at the age of 18, they were taken to forced service in the Tsar's army for 25 years. It was a 25-year mandatory service. So when they came back to Rostov in 25 years later, they were 43 years old, they went to the synagogue and they felt unwelcome. Imagine what it's like when people go, they enter the shul and they have no wives, no children. They're scarred from war. They fought for 25 years. So the shul, the rabbis didn't give them the kavod, didn't invite them to get a bracha by the Torah. The same problems we have today. So they decided they're going to build their own shul. And they built this shul. It's called to this day the Soldiers' Shul, the Soldatskaya Synagoga. Here, this is the interior of it. It was built in 1872. The Nazis came to Rostov and they conquered the city. The Nazis walked these streets by the shul. They killed every single Jew living in the city. Over 20,000 Jews were killed over the course of 2 days in 1942. It was August 11th and 12th. Every Jew from the city was taken. They were gathered at 5 different gathering points or 7 different gathering points, the outskirts of town, to a place known as Snakes Valley, and they were shot dead. And we showed up here to this shul, and we showed up and we saw young Jews, old Jews, Jews of all ages, Jews that had a tremendous desire, a thirst for Yiddishkeit. They wanted to really feel what it was like. They felt they had nothing for so many years. They wanted to come back. So Shabbos, I noticed after the meal that we had a kiddush. After the meal, I noticed this very special Jew, Yosef, and he was walking around the tables and he was filling a bag with the leftover food. And I watched carefully the Shabbos. He took a bag and he filled it with rice. Then in that same bag, he filled it with gefilte fish, and then with challah, and then with cake. He was putting everything into the same bag. I was disturbed. I was like, what's he doing? I asked someone, they said, yeah, he's taking it home to eat. But I said, why in the same bag? And it's then that it occurred to me that Yosef, this very dear Jew who sings songs in Yiddish, he remembers his parents would speak Yiddish. He comes to shul, he loves Yiddish. This Yosef, for him, food is not a luxury. It's not about having good tasting food. It's about survival. He wants to be able to just eat so that he could have the means to live another day. So I called him. I told him, Yosef, you're not doing this anymore. We're going to provide you every Friday with the food you need, and you're going to have everything you need for Shabbos. You don't need to take any more food. So Yosef was so happy. A Jew, he doesn't have any means. He doesn't need anything. He's a fine Jew. For him, the joy of life is singing songs in Yiddish. He lived a very difficult childhood, and now, thank God, he's taken care of. Unfortunately, exactly a year ago, his house burned down, and miraculously he was saved. His wife was saved, but the entire house burned down. He lost even his hearing aid, but Baruch Hashem, we're now in the midst of fixing it, of rebuilding his house, and trying to help him, because the Rebbe taught us that before helping people spiritually, you have to help them materially. So one thing that exists in Russia is that people, to quite a big point, they don't have, there's small salaries, difficult situations. So we try helping them materially before we help them spiritually. I want to share a story about this very special Jew. His name is Hirsch, and I got a call 2 years ago. Someone told me that there's Hirsch. He's living alone, and he's not doing well. And if you could help him, it would be a big mitzvah. So I was thinking, what should I do? It was Hanukkah. I was thinking, let me go to his house and see what we could do to help this very special Jew. So I came to his house on Hanukkah 2 years ago. I took bags of food and a menorah. I took my children. I knock on his door. He has a very, very old apartment. It's a little scary looking. I knock on the door, I come in, I'm like, Hirsch, we came here to celebrate Hanukkah with you. So he said to me, he told me, Rabbi, thank you for coming, but I don't need all the food. I said, why not? He said, I don't really think I'm going to live too much longer. I told him, what are you saying? Why are you saying? He says, I don't have a desire to live. I never heard someone say they don't want to live. What do you tell someone who doesn't want to live? What happened? Tell him, Hirsch, what happened? He said, well, my wife has passed on. I've had 2 heart attacks, and now I have cancer. What do I have to live for? I have no relatives, no children. Why should I live? So here I was. I brought my children. I was thinking I'm going to do a nice mitzvah. We're going to come. We're going to celebrate Hanukkah together. What do you tell someone who doesn't have the desire to live? What do you tell someone who has nothing to live for? And I'm scrambling. What can I tell him? So I told him, Yosef, you can't die. We need you. He says, what do you mean? Why do you need me? I'm thinking, what can I tell him? What can I tell him? Why do we need him? I told him, Yosef, we need you for the minyan. We need you for the daily services. He's like, why? I said, Yosef, 75 years ago, the Nazis, they conquered Rostov, they occupied Rostov, and they killed every single Jew. It is so important for us to have a minyan in shul so that we could daven, we could say the Kaddish, recite the Kaddish prayer in honor and in memory of the Jews that have passed on. But we have a problem. The problem is that we only have 9 men. And to be able to recite Kaddish, we need to have 10 people. You are the 10th man. Yosef, I'm asking you, please, can you come tomorrow to minyan? Hirsch, he tells me, Rabbi, you need me for the minyan? I said, yes, we need you. He said, I'll be there. His eyes lit up. The next day, sure enough, he showed up to shul. Minyan is not at 6 a.m. It's not at 7 a.m. It's not at 8 a.m. It's at 10 a.m. Why is it at 10 a.m.? Because the minyan was intended for old people. The minyan is intended for those people who come and they feel a sense of belonging. They feel a sense that they're needed. After that, we have a breakfast and lunch for them waiting. After that, they take food home for the rest of the day. So he shows up at 10 o'clock with his cane. It's the winter months. This is Hanukkah. And he's shown up every single day since. He has not missed a day. I'll tell you the truth. Harish is a kvetcher. He's a real Jew. He kvetches, he krachts. Every single day he's going to sit and he cries and he kvetches. I'm sick. I'm not feeling good. I'm going to the hospital. I either came from the hospital or I'm going to the hospital. We have a doctor who takes care of him, gives him the medicine he needs. But he has not missed a day. It's then that I realized that the most important thing that we have to give people is a sense of belonging, a sense that they're needed. Hirsch felt this way. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, he was left at home. We had to temporarily suspend services and he was left at home. So we started focusing on giving out food packages. We started focusing on helping people so that they could somehow survive these difficult times, because COVID has made a difficult situation a lot worse. So we started giving out food packages and we told the old people, you don't need to come to shul. We'll deliver the food packages to your homes. But one Friday, this is in March, I see Yosef in shul. Hirsch came to shul. I tell him, Hirsch, why'd you come to shul? I told you we're going to deliver. He's like, Rabbi, I didn't come here for the food packages. I don't need them. I said, what do you mean? He said, I appreciate that you give them for me, but I came here because I just need to sit down in shul for 5 minutes. Please don't throw me out. Please let me sit down for 5 minutes so I could get the koach, the strength to continue. And I realized how difficult it is for these people that are stuck at home. They don't have computers. They don't have internet. They don't have relatives. They don't have, I visited his home now on Hanukkah and I saw that his fridge wasn't working. I brought food this Hanukkah now last week to his house. And when I delivered it, I realized I wanted to put stuff in the fridge. The fridge was off. I asked him what. He didn't want to tell me, but I realized the fridge was broken. He didn't even tell anyone about that. Thank God we replaced it. But I look at this Jew that has lived through the horrors of the Holocaust, this Jew that has no understanding. He doesn't need anything. What does he want? He wants a sense of belonging. He wants to return to the Jewish people. He wants to do something good. He wants to feel that he's needed. Unfortunately, over the past few months, the 10 o'clock minyan it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe to gather these people for the 10 o'clock minyan. And unfortunately, quite a few of them have passed on in the past 8 months or so. We did a memorial service a few weeks ago for those people that have passed on. And I told the community that now we have to have a minyan instead of at 10, at 8 a.m. which for many Russians is hard to understand, 8 a.m. so early. Why? It's a long drive to shul. I told them that these older people had the tremendous self-sacrifice to come every single day to shul in the winter months of Russia, when there's ice, when there's snow, with their sticks, they're walking through. Why? So that they could say Kaddish for our parents, for our grandparents. They made sure that every single day Kaddish was recited. Today, some of them are no longer around, and today we owe them to return this favor, to say Kaddish for them. So since then, we've been having this minyan at 8 a.m. But Hirsch is fine. He's at home. He's happy. He's smiling again. And he's waiting for the day that he could come back to shul. Miriam was our bubby. She passed away a few months ago, a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor. What an amazing Jew. She's someone, she had no children. She lived when the Nazis occupied Rostov. She somehow survived. And she became a bubby to my children. We'd come to her house every Hanukkah. She lived in a small apartment, very modest. There was a one room, that was a kitchen, everything together. And every year the highlight was to go to her for Hanukkah, to light the menorah, to sing with her. She spoke Yiddish. She had a Yiddish club. What an amazing person. I want to share with you one story. I noticed you had a beautiful campaign a few days ago or just now to help support the shul, to help support the Learning Institute. And anytime that we give tzedakah, it's a very difficult thing, right? Especially when we're living in times of Corona, when maybe our income is affected. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And yet we know that there's a need to continue operating the shul, to continue everything going. So I want to tell you a story about Miriam. She was living off a $100 a month pension, maybe $150. Very modest, just a real proud Jew. What an amazing person. One day I get a call from her, and I'd go to her house every single month. She'd come to shul every Shabbos, every holiday, until she was 93. And what happened when she called me, she said, Rabbi, I need to see you. I told her, Miriam, no problem. I'm going to come to your house later today. She said, no, I'll come to you. I told her, Miriam, you're 91 years old. At the time, she was 91. I said, you don't need to come to me. We'll come to you. She said, no, Rabbi, I need to come to you. I'll be there in a half an hour. She pulls up to our office. She comes into my office and she told me these words. She said, Rabbi, today I could finally do a mitzvah that I've waited to do my entire life. And she opens her purse and she takes out of there $200 and she hands it to me. And she says, this is my tzedakah, and I ask that you please distribute it to those people who need help, who need support. I'm looking at Miriam. I know what conditions she lives in. I know the apartment she has. I know the hardships she's dealing with. She is not someone that should be giving tzedakah. She is someone who should be receiving tzedakah. I said, Miriam, what are you doing? She said, I just received restitution money from the German government, $2,000. You know that the situation hasn't been easy for me, but I just picked up this money from the bank. And the first thing I wanted to do was to fulfill the commandment of giving my share, of giving 10%. And I came here. I want you to have this. I want you to give this, because this is the joy of my life, to be able to fulfill this mitzvah. I look at Miriam. What an amazing Jew. What a person. What resolve. What inner strength. Always positive, always smiling, always radiating with light of our Jewish traditions. She would come to shul and she'd tell everyone, the youth and the students, she'd say, when I was your age, I couldn't come to shul. Why? Because I was a student in the university. I'd walk my parents and grandparents to shul, but I wouldn't enter, because if I would enter the synagogue, they'd kick me out of university. She says, today, the biggest joy of my life is that our shul is operating. The biggest joy of my life is that this synagogue, which was once occupied by the Nazis, is once again having daily services. Once again, Torah classes. Once again, youth are allowed to come in here. You guys have to appreciate what this means. I looked at Miriam and I was like, true, it's unbelievable. What an amazing, amazing person. Unfortunately, this year, shortly after Pesach, she passed on. It was during Corona. She lived a happy life. She lived a life that was given over to Judaism. She lived a life that was always about going outside of her comfort zone, doing more. At age 90, how many people ask, can you please give me the book, the Codex of Jewish Laws, so I could learn what I didn't know in my childhood, in my youth, so I could start keeping mitzvahs. One thing she told me that was very striking when I first met her about 10, 11 years ago. So for Pesach, I came to her house to give her Pesach food. And she told me, Rabbi, you're giving me, what's all this food? Why are you giving me this food? I said, what do you mean? She said, it's Pesach. We're only allowed to eat matzah. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I thought that Pesach, we have to eat for 8 days, only matzah and water. She did not know. She grew up in Soviet times. For her, Pesach every year meant that she was eating matzah and only matzah. And when I brought her fruits and vegetables and chicken and meat, she had no idea that on Pesach you're allowed to eat something other than matzah. And that's what she did. When I told her, she was like, I never knew. This is what Miriam was. And may some of today's stories be in honor of Miriam, that our neshama should have an aliyah, and we should all be inspired a little bit from what she did. I want to end with one more story, and then we could go to a little more of an informal talk. But I want to share with you one story that is very moving, and it's the story of the power of the Jewish soul. You know, the Jews that live here, the Jews that have tremendous self-sacrifice, the Jews that on a daily basis are going outside of their comfort zone, are no different than us, because we all have the same neshama, we all have the same potential. But I want to tell you this story about bris, something that happened a couple years ago, and it's very moving. So a 50-year-old man approached me and told me he wants to do a bris. And like I told you, whenever anyone does a bris, it's a very emotional moment for me to see someone at an older age decide that he wants to enter in this covenant with Abraham. It's something that Avram, how unbelievable. What type of inner strength you have to do to decide that you want to get a Jewish name. So I told this 50-year-old man, Boris, let me contact the Mohel. So I contacted the Mohel, and sure enough, he told me he could come in a week's time. So the Mohel showed up in Rostov a week later. He came to Rostov and he called me from the airport. He said, Chaim, I have a problem. What's the problem? He said, my suitcase didn't arrive. His utensils, his operating utensils didn't arrive. So he said, I have to wait. It should be on the next flight. The next flight arrives at 2 p.m. The problem is, according to Jewish law, we could only do a bris until sunset. So sunset, it's winter months. It was the first days of January, exactly 2 years ago. So he said, or 3 years ago. So he said, I have to see at 2 o'clock if my instruments come. They came. He calls, he's on his way. It's an hour drive from the airport. He comes into shul. He enters my office, which is also the operating room. My desk turns into the operating table. Very important. I don't know if we have doctors here, but it's very, very important when you do medical procedures, very important to sterilize the room. So we have Lysol, we have Febreze, we do the whole sterilization of the room. Rabbi Chaim taught me that one. Right? Is it Febreze or Lysol that we...
The Lysol might be better than the Febreze.
Right, yeah. The strawberry flavor though. Long story short, he enters my office and the bris procedure begins. When I see this, I cry. Tears come to my eyes. Why? Because we, growing up in North America, yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have our, different aspects of Jewish traditions or of place that we want to go. We want to try and take it to the next level, but not always do we have the courage. Not always do we have the strength. Not always do we have the drive to go to the next level. But what happened was, this guy is doing a bris in my office and I'm teary-eyed. As the bris is going on, there's a knock on the door. I go and open the door, and outside my office door is a 13-year-old boy by the name of Nikita. A 13-year-old boy is waiting outside of my office. He told me, Rabbi, is the Mohel here? I said, yes. He said, can I do a bris today? I told him, okay, why? He said, I want to do a bris today. So I said, wait a minute. I come back into my office. I tell the Mohel, his name is Shaya. I tell him, Shaya, we have to hurry on Boris because we have another client coming in here. We have to hurry so we can make him before sunset. Now Boris heard that I said we had to hurry on him. He wasn't too happy. He says, hey, take your time, please. There's no rush. You could do it tomorrow if you don't have time today. So I told Boris, listen, the Mohel has to be in a different city tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll do our best. I was joking, of course, but we finished the bris about a half an hour before sunset, and that's when Nikita, this young boy, this amazing boy, showed up, and he came into my office to do a bris. Where did I meet Nikita? I met Nikita during the summer. That summer, how did I meet Nikita that summer? We have a summer camp for unaffiliated Jewish boys and girls We send a van, a bus all over southern Russia to towns and villages that have no synagogues, that have no rabbis, that have no Jewish communities or Jewish schools. We gather the Jews, the Jewish kids, and they come to camp, an overnight camp for 2 years, for 2 weeks, to get a little taste of Judaism, to get a little inspiration. So this Nikita, for the first time, came to a Jewish camp that summer. His father is not Jewish and comes from a difficult home. He came to camp, and in the middle of camp, the head counselor said, whoever wants to get called to the Torah, we could give a blessing for your parents and a blessing for your siblings. So this boy said, Nikita said, I want to be called to the Torah. So the head counselor said, but it costs, you have to pay for it. He said, I don't have money. The head counselor said, it doesn't cost money. You have to take a resolution. You have to take a hachlata tova, a good resolution to do something good in honor of this bracha by the Torah. So Nikita was thinking, what resolution should I take? What mitzvah should I do so that they'll call me up to the Torah? So he told me, I decided that I'll do the mitzvah of doing a bris within 3 years. Within 3 years, before I turn 16, I'll do a bris. So the head counselor said, bravo, amazing, what a beautiful decision. Okay, we're going to call you to the Torah, but there's one problem. What's the problem? The problem is that the head counselor lives in Moscow. And he says, how do I know you'll do the bris? I'm going to leave to Moscow after camp. You live in Rostov. How do I know that before you turn 16, you're going to do it? I need a guarantor. So he needs a local guarantor from Rostov. So he's thinking, who should I invite? Who can I put as the guarantor? He said, my dear counselor. He is a counselor, Shalom. This boy, an 18-year-old boy at the time, was his counselor. He was a local boy from Rostov who made his way back to Yiddishkeit, back to Judaism. He started keeping Torah. He started keeping Shabbos. He started keeping Jewish traditions. What an amazing person. So he said, he's gonna be the guarantor. When the head counselor says, Shalom is going to be the guarantor, no question about it, we could go ahead, and they gave him the blessing. Nikita is telling me, so I was asking Nikita, why is he doing the bris now? He was terrified. Nikita was lying there on the table in my office, and he was almost having a panic attack. He was terrified of a bris, and I asked him, why are you doing the bris now? If you're so scared, why did you decide to come here? I didn't call you. I didn't tell you. You came on your own accord. Why did you come? So he told me this story, that Shalom was his guarantor. And a few weeks before this bris happened, Shalom was killed in a terrible car accident. Shalom, this beautiful boy, this 18-year-old boy, a boy that started and made his way back to Yiddishkeit, a boy that was helping other Jews come back to their traditions, was killed in a horrible head-on collision. And incidentally, his yahrzeit is today, the 10th of Tevis. Today, the 10th of Tevis, exactly 3 years ago, he was killed on impact. So Nikita told me, how could I not come? How could I not come and do a bris today when Shalom is my guarantor and I know his neshama is waiting for me to fulfill this mitzvah? He can't wait till I'm 16. He needs me to do it today. I'm terrified. I'm terrified to go to dentist. You can imagine how scared I am to be here and to do a bris. But I know that Shalom needs this, and that's why I'm here. So I'm standing there holding his head, the sandak, as we do, we hold the back of his head, and I'm inspired, and we're crying, we're emotional, and I look at this amazing boy. What does it take? What type of inner strength do you need to have to be able to decide at age 13 to go do a bris when your father's not Jewish and you have little knowledge of Jewish traditions? He just started attending our Jewish day school. What an amazing boy. This is right after he did the bris and he walked out. I was congratulating him. So after the bris was over, I did a naming ceremony, and I said, "V'ikara shmo b'Yisrael." What name do you want? And he looks at me. He says, "So." I said, "What name do you want?" He says, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "Shalom." He chose the name Shalom in honor of his dear counselor who was passed on. I look at this Nikita, and I tell myself, "Wow." Look at this boy. Look at the courage he has. Look what he's doing in honor of his dear counselor who was passed on. So this boy to us was like a child. This boy to us in the community was someone that only did good. He brought his family back to Yiddishkeit. He brought his father, his mother. They started keeping kosher because of him. And this horrible, tragic day when he passed on. Thankfully, exactly a year and a few months after he passed away, his parents had another child. They already older at that point, but they had another child and they named him Yaakov, and that's giving the parents tremendous chizuk in these difficult times since the passing of Shalom. Why am I sharing these stories? I'm sharing these stories because when I first left Pasadena 12 years ago, and I was coming here, and most of our friends and most of our colleagues and acquaintances thought we're crazy. They said, "Why are you going? Why are you moving so far away? It's a crazy idea. Why would you do this? Why do you need this? Why?" And the answer was, well, we have to go there. We have to help people. We have to inspire. We have to be there for those Jews that haven't had the easiest of times, that haven't had the easiest of life, and we have to support them. The Rebbe taught us that we have to go out and we have to do what we can to make sure every Jew has what they need materially and spiritually. That's what we said. We said we're going to inspire them. Living here for the past 12 years, it's become very clear that no, we're not dealing with inspiring people here. We didn't come here to inspire people. For the past 12 years since we moved here, we've been getting inspired by the people here, because Jews that have lived through the hardest of times, 70 years of communism, Jews who have lived, who their ancestors lived here when the Nazis occupied the city, Jews who have lived through the times before that when it was impossible to live a Jewish life. These Jews lived through it all, but their Jewish soul, their pintaliyah, their neshama, their spark didn't cease to exist. It wasn't flickered, it was flickering, it was continuing, and it's this spark that is driving them today in a mass to return to their heritage. So what I want to say is, the Jews that live here are no different than us, and we just have the luxury of living in comfort. When most, I want to ask a question. Actually, I want to take off the screen because I want to see everyone's faces for a second to ask a question. And my question is for those that have their video on: does anyone have grandparents or great grandparents that came from Eastern Europe? If you could just by raise of hand, if anyone that came from that part of the world. Okay, anyone that has great grandparents that came specifically from the Soviet bloc, that would be Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, anyone from those areas? Okay, so most of you have. So one of the questions I've been asking myself since I moved here is, what would have happened had my great grandparents not left when they left? My parents were born in Canada. My grandparents were born in Canada. My great grandparents left Ukraine before the revolution. So this is the beginning of the 20th century. And I'd always asked myself, what would have happened had my great grandparents not left when they left? Because they lived a rich life. They lived in Ukraine. They had a farm. They had everything they needed. But at one point, when the Cossacks came, at one point, when anti-Semites came and they realized that there was a danger for their life, they decided that they're going to risk it all. They found inner courage to pick up and to move at a time that you're not talking about the time of internet, of plane rides, not the time when you know where you're going and you could pick up a phone. They picked up, they left all their riches behind just so they could give us an easier future. What did they want? They wanted us to have the luxury of being able to get a Jewish education. They wanted us to have the luxury of being able to go to synagogue. They wanted us to have the luxury of living in a city that has kosher food. And today, we complain that the kosher restaurants aren't as good as the non-kosher restaurants. We might complain that the Jewish education is not as good or not as accessible as some of the other educations that are around. The luxuries we have today are the reasons that our great-grandparents escaped and ran away. I see the hardships and the challenges of those Jews whose grandparents weren't as courageous. I see the hardships and the challenges of those Jews whose great-grandparents, maybe it wasn't an issue of being courageous or not. Maybe the issue was they just didn't have the opportunity. They didn't have where to go to. They didn't have the visa. But these Jews lived here through the hardest of times, and they're no different than us. And I think the lesson that I've taken from living here, and the lesson I'm trying to give my children by living here, is that we're all, responsible for one another. And everything that they are doing, the Jews here, the self-sacrifice that they have, and the strength that they find inside their souls is the same strength that we all have. And we just have to find the courage to go in and to use out this tremendous koach that we have to propel ourselves higher. And we do that by deciding that we'll go out of our comfort zone a little. Yes, we could sit there and complain what's wrong with Judaism in America. We could complain what hardships or challenges there are here or there, but it's all excuses. If a Jew in Rostov in 2020 could keep kosher, if a Jew in Rostov in 2020 could decide that he's going to switch over to kosher at a time when there's not a single kosher restaurant in the city, at a time that there's no possibility of shopping in a proper supermarket and buying kosher products. You have to order them from outside of town, but they do it anyway. Why? Because the Jew needs to, you are what you eat, and a Jew needs to be eating what the Torah tells us to eat. How much more so we could do that in the States. So I want to end today's talk with, we're coming from Hanukkah. Hanukkah this year was a very different Hanukkah than we're used to because of COVID. I've had the privilege this Hanukkah to focus on visiting some of the Jews here in their homes, something that I wasn't usually able to on a regular Hanukkah, and I saw up close really their tremendous inner strength of what they deal with, and it's been an inspiration for me. So Hanukkah teaches us that we always have to add in light, and we can never be happy with where we're holding. So may we all find the courage and the resolve to look into our souls and to say what it is we know. Thank God we've done a lot of good, and we are doing good, and we're very good people, but we have to add another light. Hanukkah, we may not light the menorah anymore, but the light of the menorah and the light of what the menorah represents is something that needs to continue also after Hanukkah. And I want to say, when I moved to Pasadena, so I used to tell my friends, if you're ever in the area, stop by for a Shabbos, for a weekday. And not a week would go by without getting a call and someone telling me, Rabbi, Chaim, I'm in town. Can I come to you for Shabbos? Can I come to visit? Do you want to visit? Literally every week. For the past 12 years, I've been doing the same, telling people if you're ever in the area, stop by. No one has really taken up that offer of stopping by, but I could say that Chaim and a group of courageous Pasadenians did have plans, visas, and I believe even tickets to come here to be with us this year, because it was the 100th year commemoration since the passing of the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. It was a very special year, and we planned to do a very special event in March 26th. It so happened that obviously it wasn't meant to happen this year because of COVID, but I very much look forward. And for us, the biggest chizuk, the biggest support is when someone takes the journey, takes a long journey to schlep on over. So I know a few people here in the group planned on joining Rabbi Chaim, and we look forward to that happening because COVID will end. Hopefully within a few more years, within 3-4 years, it should be over. Maybe 5-6 years, right? What's going on?
It's already over here.
It's over there.
The United States no longer has COVID.
United States. I was going to tell you that we also have the vaccine. If you guys are low, we can send you some. We have our vaccine, and we're as a token of my appreciation for all Chaim you've done for us. We want to give you some doses. Tell me how many you need, and we'll send them over. And your son-in-law has it now. He could actually right now live administer it if you'd like. Or if you like a knife.
They'll use a pen the same way they use in the rest of.
Exactly.
I want to thank you, Chaim, for an outstanding job, but don't run away yet. We have a couple questions that I have up on the screen here. If anybody else has a particular question they want to ask you, you can type in a direct message or just raise your hand and we'll get to you. Well, one question was from Danny. It says, I also moved from Toronto. This is from a little while ago. I also moved from Toronto after the UK to California. My wife hopes we don't follow your example onwards to Russia. The story just a mix-up between the Don River in Toronto and the same river named in Russia. And most importantly, did the mother of the 14-year-old Bris volunteer ever catch up with Rabbi Danzinger? That's really the question.
So if you notice, the camp was in Ukraine, and we purposely chose to move to Russia. Ukraine, we're not able to go to Ukraine anymore, so we decided to move to Russia.
So I guess that's
very good question. Yeah.
Anybody got a question they wanted to ask Rabbi Danzinger? you can raise your hand. If not, I want to ask you a quick question. Being that you're obviously not native Russians and your son was a young kid when they moved to Russia, I assume that your kids all speak the language, they speak Russian. But out of curiosity, first and foremost, how many languages do your kids speak? And secondly, what is the language spoke at home?
So at home, we speak mostly Ukrainian. No, I'm joking. No, we speak English at home, and the kids speak English as a main language. Somehow everyone speaks a perfect Russian. The Russian's a tough language. I've been working on it for 12 years, and I'll probably work on it for the next I'm now 40, so the next, I guess, 80 years or so to get it down pat, because it's a very tough language. But they speak Russian. They go to our school which is in Russian. This year has been an extremely challenging year because we put our kids in the English online school. So as you know, we have a school here, a day school, which is for non-observant kids. So my kids go there for a few hours, but we really want to give them the proper, from education. So there's an online school. Now, there's only one problem with online school, that it's New York time. So every single day, my kids start their online school at 5:30 p.m. and they end it at 11:30 p.m. So when I come to my 9-year-old daughter and tell her she has to go to sleep at midnight, she screams and yells. She has a fit that she's doing homework with her classmates. It's the only time that she could be talking to them. So this year has been an extremely different year, where 1 a.m. and the Danzinger home is up, and we're so now you understand the self-sacrifice of waking up at 6 a.m. when we finish our evening routine at 2. But I'll tell you, the truth is I didn't sleep yet. So the routine ended a little late last night. I was thinking to myself, if I fall asleep, there's a good chance I won't wake up. And I could just see you guys gather. Now, I have no doubt that Chaim could put on a show, slapstick. You do something here to improvise. I've seen it done before, but I feel very guilty if you guys gathered. And the last, I feel that we left on good terms, but now the next thing you'll remember the next 12 years is there's supposed to be an event, and I slept through it.
If you would have slept through this one, I'd be calling your house every morning for the next month at 6 a.m. to wake you up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was a curiosity. I don't know that your wife is still up or not, but is she available to come on, or is she?
Our next episode will be at an hour where she'll be available. So we're gonna do that. Yeah, we'll have a women's session next time. We'll get all the men off, and we'll do it at a women's session with Kayla. Now the truth is, I'm not sure I'm gonna let her go on. I'm worried what's gonna happen. She'll get on with you guys. Next thing I know, she'll pack up her bags. I'll find her next to the front door with a taxi to the airport. You know what I mean? Have to be careful.
So I got a message here to you from the Halperns. Great seeing from Mitch and Chaya. Great seeing.
Wow.
We love your stories.
It's been a long time. So nice to see you guys. Sal.
I do have a question.
Shmuel. Yes.
Are you still coming up through the manholes?
So you know what? People you wouldn't understand. That's what I was trying to say. That video of the manhole. Yes, it was deleted. It wasn't only deleted. Let's just say it was the hard drive that it was on was destroyed. So no backup's gonna get.
Got it.
Let's just say I miss that part of Pasadena very much. You guys. Yes.
I got another question for you. What was the thing from Scott and Lisa Castro? What was the thing that inspired your wife to move to Russia after all, when she was so adamant against it?
Schnapps. So we started the day with every morning we do a little schnapps, and that's what keeps it going.
Drinking. I understand.
And if that doesn't work, then we do a second schnapps, a second shot. After the fourth shot, she's always happy here. So no, I'll tell you. The truth is that she saw. I was really. I had so many years of Chai mentioned about this camp. So yeah, I did start a camp here in 2001, and I gave my life to this. This was like something very special. And back then, there were like hundreds of people wanted to come to the camp, and we had to filter through. These are people that all wanted to pay their own tickets, and my goal was to give Russian Jewish kids, a camping experience that is no less superior to what exists in the States. The only difference is that in America, you pay $5,000 or more for a camp. Here, they come for free. So I did this year after year, and it was just so moving to see what the Jewish kids here are like. They don't have any understanding of the material world, and they're happy with so little. And they're just proud Jews, and it felt very special to be in this place where Hasidism began in Russia. So it always felt special to be here where everything began, and to inspire and help people return to the fold. So I think at some point, Kayla herself was here twice in camps. So it wasn't completely foreign to her, the concept of doing this. It was just that when you
decided she didn't want to come.
That exactly. That's why she was adamant on not. No, but I think at one point when she really realized how much we're needed, and that she also has the capacity and the knowledge, a little bit of Russian to do it, she realized that I'll tell you like this: in the business world, you want to earn money, and the more you earn, if you don't have a successful year, you want to get even more and more. In the shlichus world, when you're told that you're needed once, twice, three times, and you know that it's not easy, and you're not running there, but you know that the Rebbe sent people to places. I'll tell you an example. When I was a student, so there's this whole the Chabad system has something called Merka Shlichus. They send young students to different places around the world where there are no rabbis, to inspire the local Jews and to prepare the groundwork to bring a full-time rabbi. So when I was 20 years old, I applied to this program, and a friend of mine pranked me. A friend of mine called my phone, and he left a message. He said, "Hi, this is Rabbi Kotlarski. We're calling in response to your request to go out to help in one. So we have 3 offers. You could go to the Caribbean islands, you could go to the Himalayas, or you could go to Finland or something." And I'm like all excited. Wow! I call my friend. I'm like, "Let's decide. I think we'll do the Caribbean islands. It's amazing." So I called back and I'm like, "Yeah, hi. We got the message. We'll do the Caribbean islands." He's like, "What islands?" I said, "We got your message. The Caribbean islands." He said, "No, you guys are going to Tarrytown, New York." I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "It's a 20-minute drive outside of Crown Heights." And that was it. That's what we went. That was our shlichus, was to go to this city. And you always look forward. You pack up food and suitcases. And what do you mean? 20. So we said we're going to make the best out of it. We packed up a car full of food. We went out there, a 20-minute drive, and we spent 2 weeks in Tarrytown. So the point is, in shlichus, you go where you're needed, and not so much where you want to go. So we, had Pasadena not been such a warm, inviting, amazing community, when I would have gotten the offer in February to go, we probably would have gone right away. But because it was so difficult to make this decision, it took us another 4 or 5 months to finally realize that really, we have to go because no one else. It's not like, when there's an opening in a country, in an island, in a nice place, there's lineups of people. Here there were 2 years that there was no rabbi, a city with 15,000 Jews, and there was no rabbi. There was no one at all, and there's no lineups, no one's coming here, no one's waiting in line to come. So it's then that it dawned on us that we have to do it. Now I do want to say that that Rabbi Stiefel has 2 brothers here in this part of the world, and I'm not sure who's the lucky one, if he's the lucky one or they're the lucky one. I know he's smiling. He has a smile, saying like, "Yeah."
I'll tell you, I've been listening to the dynamic of your wife's say on this, because we also had this whole dynamic of, I was planning on moving to Russia, and she was adamant not to move to Russia. So I'm like listening to the part, like, when does that transfer happen? But it sounds like until
your father-in-law's smile has gone away very fast.
I guess until Baal Lazar calls me and asks me to fill a city in Russia, I guess I'm more needed here.
Chaim, do you have any other people you need to take on the other line? Maybe give him a call quickly.
Yeah.
I heard about Belgorod. You know the city of Belgorod? I hear there's no rabbi there. My wife just left the room.
And the good thing is there's also no Jews. So
I got another question for you, Rabbi Danzinger. It is from Danny. Thank you for sharing your inspiring experience. Can you share what is the attitude of Soviet authorities to Yiddishkeit nowadays?
Okay, so I don't know what the Soviet authorities are like because they've been out of power for some 30 years, but I could tell you what the Russian authorities are like. Yeah. Let me tell you like this. President Putin has been an absolute blessing to the Jewish community. There's no question about it that Jews in Russia are enjoying the best period of time that they've had in hundreds of years. So, when people often ask, government, this, that, I always say that, we're rabbis, we're not into politics. Our job is to look out for the Jewish community and for the Jews living here. And there's no doubt that the Jews living in Russia are, thank God, well looked after by the authorities, and by authorities I mean from President Putin, because the communities, they're giving back buildings, they're giving back synagogues, they're giving back, our school is in a building that 140 years ago was built as a Talmud Torah. It was in the hands of a university for many years. We tried getting it back, they wouldn't give it back. So Rabbi Lazar went to meet with President Putin some 15 years ago, and he wrote a letter telling the local governor to give it back. And the next day it was back. I mean, it took a day. They got rid of the university, they got rid of the students, of the faculty, of everything, and the paper was in the hand. Meaning he gave it. So when people are asking what it's like, things here now, you talk about anti-Semitism. Thank God, you can't. Europe has anti-Semitism. Here, when I walk in the street, do I have issues? No one looks. There's no, when there's issues with Israel, they used to have protests against Israel. There's never protests here in Russia against Israel. No one cares. People like Israel here. So thank God in regards to anti-Semitism, in regards to the government, things are stable. Things are good, and that's why most Jews are we as rabbis especially, we pray that this government should stay here for the Jews, because we never know, the country here changes so much and things happen that right now when things are good, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So
thank you, Alex Fisher.
But that's a good question.
Alex,
Alex wants to know what type of salmon on the Don River, what type of salmon
pink salmon
swim in the Don.
Okay, I enjoyed the story, but it's time to come back now. It's past time to come back to Pasadena. You look like you need a little sun too, so I guess you get you over to go fishing with us again.
Hello, Alex, is that you?
Exactly.
Connection?
Yeah.
This is where the connection goes off.
Apparently the KGB is tapped in.
Listen, Alex, if you'd like, you can go there. We're gonna make you another ticket.
Well, I'm looking for the next.
Alex
ticket.
is one of the courageous ones, by the way, who has a visa to go to Russia together with myself and the Lineberg, a few others.
Wow! I can't wait for you guys to use that.
I was your biggest advocate.
Well,
really, Alex, I appreciate that. Alex, Alex is gonna get from me an additional vaccine. I'll give you 2 of them.
Well,
that's for being an advocate.
We could send you some Texas Tito vodka if you like.
No, you bring it. Don't send it. You bring it when you come.
I had another quick question for you that was asked. When it comes to medical care, although
what care?
Exactly.
What care?
There you go. Medical care. Although I'm sure things have improved substantially over the last 30 years in Russia in terms of when I was there, it was a backward third world country. But when somebody needs some serious medical care, even having children as Westerners, do you trust the medical system there, or do you, God forbid you should need it, but do you jump and head on out someplace else?
Okay, so anyways, it's time for Minyan now. I have to go to the morning services are starting soon.
Yeah, noon.
Right. We say a lot of Tehillim.
You say a lot of Tehillim.
Kapitel Chaf does wonders.
It goes along with the vaccine. Okay.
No, they have medical, they have hospital, but my wife personally has given birth in the States. She's gone back. But nowadays there's modern clinics. Nowadays there's international health centers. So you have, Moscow is very good. Here a little less good. but we try not to get sick.
No, that's important. Anybody else have any other questions? Just waiting for a moment here. It does say that Putin is listening to this. Okay, that's good. He just told us that he's listening. You can't see his picture up there.
You got the message.
No, apparently the feed from the Kremlin's a little weak, so.
The internet, the Wi-Fi.
Just one last question we have for you here. I guess you had the Olympics not far from you a couple of years. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, not no. We had the Olympics a bunch of years ago. The Winter Olympics. We had the World Cup 2 years ago.
The World Cup. That's what it was. How and were you able to supply for Jewish or at least observant Jews who are coming out there to the games in terms of, did you have some involvement, kosher, whatever, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So basically, we had a lot of Jewish visitors from South America. So what happened was they make a lottery. So a bunch of cities in Russia hosted the World Cup. They're like, I think 10 or 11 cities. So they made a lottery to see which cities are going to host which games. I was waiting to see what we're going to host. So we ended up hosting a lot of different countries that have a sizable Jewish community. So we had, I'd say, we had Mexico, we had Brazil, we had which other ones? A few other countries. So they started contacting me, telling me that they're coming here for the World Cup because they're hardcore soccer fans, football fans. They came here. It was the most amazing Shabbos, the most amazing I guess it was about a month that it went on for. It was just so, we don't get tourists. So suddenly they were coming and they're so excited to see everyone. And they're so excited to see the shul. And Shabbos, we had about 100 Mexicans. They brought so much tequila. I think we still have some left now. So it was a very, very special, very meaningful experience. And they came. I was actually in touch with some of them after. They invited me to Mexico to go speak there a little bit. So that was the last time we had a lot of tourists. The next time we're expecting a large group of tourists is when you show up.
Now, actually, I don't know you know about this, but it's actually now 6 daily nonstops from Burbank to Rostov. So
I think it's 5, 6.
Yeah, well, 6, they went up. Yeah, it used to be a little more, but they're down to 6 daily nonstops.
Right, exactly. So feel free to come on one of those nonstops. Just bring a little Tito's vodka and
just for the ride.
Exactly.
The problem is that it just keeps going round and round. It's a nonstop.
Exactly.
Never
exactly.
I want to thank you, Rabbi Danziger, for an outstanding job. And I have no doubt, as for myself, it was great to see you live here in person at 6 a.m. in Rostov, fasting, I might add. By the way, can we just, since we're like on the screen with each other, can we end our fast when yours ends today?
Right now, you're pretty much, we could do such a thing.
Finish like at 3 p.m. or something there? I don't know.
Very early, 5 p.m. exactly, yeah.
5 p.m.
It's the easy one. That's the easy one.
Anyway, but a big Yashikol, thank you, send our best.
Thank you. So nice seeing you all. I will, absolutely.
The Danziger clan.
And, thank you.
We will be there, Mitzvah, soon. Well, Mashiach is coming, so actually we'll be trying to arrange.
On the way.
Based on Mikdash, we can have the Rostov and Chabad of Pasadena shuls next to each other.
Beautiful. Look forward to it.
We'll make it work. And I want to thank anybody who can help sponsor this evening. You can send all the rubles that you have to Rabbi Danziger, but to Rabbi Zushi, if you can send dollars instead, because apparently Chase Bank over here has a little trouble translating from rubles to dollars.
Actually, I do want to thank so far 2 people came on board as sponsors, $54. Just a reminder, it's $54 to sponsor this evening. We're looking for 10. If you're available to do so, please visit the link, PasadenaJewishAcademy.com/donate. Yes, again, a tremendous thank you to Rabbi Chaim and Rabbi Chaim for such an inspiring evening. I also want to invite you to join us for the next Soul Library. The exact date is not set. I was talking to Michal Muchnik just the other day, but Michal Muchnik is a world-renowned Hasidic artist, and he will be sharing us his inspiration and his stories from all of his experiences with the Rebbe and his experiences with Jewish art and Hasidic art, etc. So please join us for that next Soul Library, which will be towards the end of January. Other than that, Thank you very, very much.
Yes, we got it from Sal, a blast from the past. Thanks to Rabbi Danziger and Anokas. All the best. Miss you guys. Miss you too out there in the wilds of Canada, I assume. Anyway,
right.
It was good to see everybody online here. We wish you all a good night and a good Shabbos. And again, a big thank you to Rabbi Danziger.
Thank you.
Das
Thank
Vidanya.
you, Rabbi Danzinger.
Shalom, shalom. So nice seeing you all. We'll see you.